The moment is at hand to put an end to hunger in America itself for all time.
In 1969, the White House hosted the first conference on food, nutrition, and health.
If we could put man on the moon twice, then certainly we ought to be able to do away with hunger in this country.
That historic event brought together a bipartisan group of government leaders, experts, and grassroots activists who were committed to creating life-changing programs that millions of Americans still rely on today.
We brought home produce from the garden for my family. I helped plant this garden, and my class planted the onions.
And in the years since, administrations have made progress for children and families. My husband signed landmark legislation to make school breakfast and lunches more nutritious. And through Let's Move, we help kids get excited about fruits and vegetables. We help teachers, schools, and after-school programs get kids active. And we help make it easier for parents to make more informed, healthy choices for their children. We did it all because we believe in the promise of every child. And that's why we worked with everyone, from mayors and school superintendents to corporate CEOs and nonprofit partners, to local chefs and Elmo himself, to help shift demand and make nutritious options more widely available. It means a lot to me that the Biden-Harris administration has built on that work. They've taken key steps to reduce sodium in food, and they provided critical relief to families during the height of COVID-19, increasing SNAP benefits, helping families buy groceries to make up for missed meals at school, and driving down hunger for families with children through the child tax credit. But despite that enormous progress, we all know there's still more work to do. Hunger persists. Heart disease and type 2 diabetes remain some of the leading causes of death and disability. And too many Americans live in communities without access to affordable and healthy food or safe places to walk or exercise. So it will take all of us bringing our experiences, insights, research, and passion to drive transformative change. That's why you all are here today. And I can't wait to see everything you do to help push our country toward a healthier future for everyone.
Where we live, where we work, what we earn, shouldn't determine how healthy we can be. We cannot wait to act.
I'm committed to taking bold steps that are going to help end hunger and enable everyone to have access to affordable, healthy food and safe places to be physically active.
The Biden-Harris administration is leading the way in elevating these issues and launching a national strategy that we can all get behind. Let's join together in order to end hunger, improve nutrition and physical activity, and close disparities by 2030. Let's get to work.
Please welcome to the stage U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services Javier Becerra, Chairwoman Debbie Stabenow, Chairwoman Rosa DeLauro, and Mayor Eric Adams of New York City.
We're on a clock, so we're going to go right to it. So can I begin by saying thank you for being here. Thank you for helping the president achieve this game-changing goal in the future. But I want to start with a question. What did you eat this morning for breakfast? Or what did you have for lunch? Or what will you eat for dinner? Did it come out of a package? Did you pop it in the microwave and heat it for 1 minute? If you did, now you understand why we're doing this conference. And perhaps the more important question is, for all those who answered the question by saying nothing, not by choice, but because they had nothing to eat, that's really why we're doing this conference. And so I say to each and every one, of you, we have to make it so that everyone understands that nutrition is health and food is medicine. Because if we said to everyone in the morning, son, before you go to school, did you take your medicine? Did you have that breakfast? We are far better off. And so let us get to that point where we make that happen. Frederick Douglass, about 160 years ago, said it even better. He said, it's easier to build strong children than to repair broken men. My mom said it even briefer. Mejor prevenir que remediar. Better to prevent than to remediate. And so let's get to it. Frederick Douglass gave us the prescription. My mom gave us the medicine. We can do this. And if we do, then I think what we're going to be able to say is that America will produce an abundance of food, more than what we could eat in America itself. But not 1 in 10 of all of our Americans will live in food insecurity as they do now. And if we do the right thing, we will be able to say that we will eradicate chronic diseases like diabetes, heart disease in the future. And so we have work to do. And we have 3 champions with us today who can talk about this. So I'm going to go right to them and ask them some questions, because we want the folks who can really put their hand on the lever and make a difference to give us some good words. So I'm going to start with Senator Debbie Stabenow from the great state of Michigan with a question, if I may. And I'm not going to change it on you, Senator Stabenow. It'll be the same question that I think you would like to answer.
I don't know.
People from all over America are joining us today. It is not just the audience who is here, but from across the country. We're live streaming. They come from various backgrounds, very diverse backgrounds. Senator Stabenow, what must we do to make sure we bring all Americans along in this work to reduce food insecurity and diet-related disease, regardless of their background, regardless of their party, regardless of where they live?
Well, Secretary Becerra, it's wonderful to be here with you and with the great champion, the Appropriations Committee, Congresswoman DeLore. Mayor, it's wonderful to have a chance to be with you as well. And thank you to all of you. That's number one. Thank you, thank you, thank you. We are all in this together, right? We've been working really hard. We've been, yeah. And to, obviously, President Biden and Vice President Harris, let me just say, when we look at what we are doing on our end, there's this thing called the Farm Bill that we write every 5 years, which is such a misnomer, right? By the way, it's coming up again. Hello, we're all going to be working hard. But it's nutrition policy. I mean, in our committee, we're doing everything from school lunches, and I just heard Michelle Obama talking and the great victories that we've had that we need to keep. But our food and nutrition, the largest investments in land and water conservation are made in this thing we call the Farm Bill. So what we're doing on climate is so critical. What we're doing on local foods is so critical. There's a whole range of things supporting our farmers, large and small. But the challenge, and I think the opportunity, and what we've been building on, is to make sure food is accessible and available for everyone, regardless of where you live, whether you're in the farthest rural areas or whether you are in the city or the suburbs or everything in between, that access is available, that support is available to be able to have the kind of access to food, and then that we are building for everyone to make sure that there is accessibility and affordability for children in school, for families, and so on. Now, there's a lot of ways to do that, and I have to say, going to this farm bill, and we need your help, because number one is to not go backwards. And so every single time we go into the farm bill, and I was just asked today in the hallway by the press, we have friends in the house. I see we had wonderful friends, Joe and Shelley, wonderful friends, but on the other side of the aisle, they say, well, we're going to write a farm bill, and we're going to have to cut SNAP. What do you think about that? And I say, we're not cutting SNAP. Oh, no. So, but I'm going to need your help, and that's what I do every time. But we need to move forward from that. But we've got to make sure we're not losing ground on anything we've done, and then we have to build and build and build. Now, this last time in 2018, when we couldn't get an increase that we desperately needed, we did something. We put in some language called updating the Thrifty Food Plan, which hadn't been done since 1975. And we've changed the way we cook since 1975. The assumptions on which the amount of money needed by a family has dramatically changed. And so what happened when we did that, we put it in. Former administration wouldn't administer it, wouldn't do it. President Biden stepped up. We sent a letter right away. He looked at it and said, let's do this. And Secretary Vilsack did it. 21% increase in SNAP by just updating the Thrifty Food Standard. So we have to keep that. Because I'm mentioning this, we have to keep that. And we want to build on the other things we've done, and I will just close with a couple of examples about why local community ideas are so important. The creativity that comes from the community, from all of you, that we can build on, that comes from the cities. The mayor and I were talking about this. I see my great friend Orrin Hesterman here and our great Fair Food Network folks. Back in 2009, we had 5 farmers markets in Detroit that started something, in part with a Kellogg Foundation grant, to say, you know, at a farmer's market, if you're using SNAP, we're going to give you twice the value. We called it double up bucks. Double up bucks. So they tried it. It was great. And so in the Farm Bill that I wrote in 2014, we did a nationwide demonstration project. So successful. Now we're going into grocery stores. So now it's nationwide. We want to build on that, but that idea came from the community. The second thing that I will say is that during the Flint water crisis, we knew that the best way to mitigate the horrible exposure of children to lead was good nutrition. 2 things happened. Our Michigan milk producers stepped up, first ones to donate milk. And we, out of that, developed a milk donation program that is now, dairy donation program that's now nationwide. And Dr. Mona, who was our champion in stepping forward on the Flint water crisis, started giving children a produce prescription. The health clinic was right above the farmer's market. And the children would come in and she would say, okay, you have to do this. This is your prescription. And they were given vouchers to go downstairs and buy fruits and vegetables. We've now got that in the Farm Bill, but it needs to be expanded. We need to be doing it from a health standpoint as well. But Mr. Secretary, I'm sorry if I took too long, but I just want to say that the good idea, because we could talk forever, but the good ideas come from the community. I'm anxious to hear your good ideas that we can build on. We have done so much, and thank you for all that all of you are doing. We just want to build and grow and grow and grow and address what is basically, I think, a moral issue for all of us. No person in America should go hungry. Everyone should have the opportunity to be as healthy as possible, and that's what this is about. And thank you as well, Secretary Rice, for all that you have done to bring us here.
Madam Chair, the chair of the Senate Ag Committee gets to talk as long as she wants. That's the rule I learned. And let me now introduce Congresswoman from Connecticut, Rosa DeLauro, who's the chair of the Appropriations Committee. And I will tell you, the floor is all hers as long as she wants.
That's right.
Especially if she's dealing with HHS's budget.
Thank you, Javier.
But she has been a champion of this for a long time. So, Chairwoman DeLauro, please go right ahead.
Thank you. What a
let me pose the question to you. Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I'm going to let her do whatever she wants. So this conference is the launching point for the work ahead. The national strategy sets out some big goals, some of which require Congress's support through legislation, and there are calls for action at the state and local level as well. Chairwoman Doro, what do you see as the big opportunities for progress in the next year, in the next 5 years, so we can really knock this out of the park?
Sure. First of all, it's wonderful to be here. Just look at the size of this crowd. Has there been a pent-up, you know, interest and anxiety and feeling for this conference? It really is wonderful. And what is it? It's about ending hunger. I don't say food insecurity. I'm sorry. Just people are hungry, and we need to end hunger, and we need to make sure that people are, you know, leading healthy lives and are eating nutritious food. And Secretary Becerra, wonderful to be with you, and my partner in the Senate, Senator Stabenow, and Mayor, it's wonderful to be with you. I said, I see you a lot on TV, and it's wonderful to see you here in person. It's great. It's great. But I want to say, first of all, congratulations to you, Ambassador Rice, for what is a tremendous success here today. And I have to give a shout out to my dear friend and colleague, Congressman Jim McGovern. Honestly, we would not be here if it were not for Jim McGovern, because he doesn't take no for an answer, and he never gives up. And I feel as if I am a co-conspirator with McGovern, because as chair of appropriations, we were able to include the funding for the conference in the 2022 bill. So, you know, when you think about it, people made reference to the conference, you know, some 50 years ago, and it was a tremendous success. And SNAP, WIC, breakfast, lunch, menu labeling, so many other pieces were there. And I am optimistic that we are going to have the same kind of direction that we had back then as we are now, in making sure that we are leading the way in these efforts as we did all those years ago. You know, I really am blessed and honored to be chair of the Appropriations Committee, and I will tell you, it is great to have the gavel. It really is. It's great to have
We want you to keep the gavel. I'm just saying.
Well, it's going to be. I'm going to be hard pressed to give it up. I will tell you that much. And what I've tried to do, and what we have tried to do on the committee, is to make sure that we are making investments in nutrition and in food, and moving in the direction. And when you take a look at what we've done in the 2023 appropriations bill, if you do a cross-cut, and we did this cross-cutting, which is provisions in the fiscal year 2023 funding bills to help end hunger and promote healthy lifestyles, it's almost $149 billion that we are appropriating to do this. What's it include? It's senior nutrition programs, it's child nutrition programs, it's WIC, it's SNAP, it's nutrition and related, diet-related diseases that are so important for us to look at these days. And many, many more of the programs that are being discussed here today and that are in the national strategy. If you will, if you take a look at the national strategy, when you look at the programs that are listing, that most of this comes through an appropriations committee. And I love my partner in the Senate. Farm bill is every 5 years. Friends, appropriations is every single year. Every year. $1.3 trillion. Put that in your head. So when you're advocating and when you're lobbying, make sure you know where to put, you know, your mouths are in terms of what you want to try to accomplish. The question here that you asked, Mr. Secretary, is where do we go 1 year, 5 years, et cetera? And I just thought about some of this because we build on the programs that we have. We have to do that, and we will continue to funding them, the core programs. But, you know, what are the policy recommendations? And listen, I believe we need to extend WIC eligibility for children until their 6th birthday or their first day of kindergarten. We need to expand WIC benefits so that they do not lapse on folks. Raise the SNAP minimum benefit to at least $30. Expand DSNAP to the territories, more than now ever. Look at Puerto Rico. We need to be able to do something in Puerto Rico with DSNAP. Yes. We got to boost SNAP participation among older adults, expand free school meals to every family. Yes. That is, and we all that's here. That's a moral responsibility, a moral imperative for all of us. You know, support local food programs. It's been talked about. Increase access to plant-based foods everywhere. Increase the research in the alternative proteins. We ought to be looking at those issues very, very carefully. And increasing the research for diet-related diseases. Look at nutrition, the effect of nutrition on chronic illness. Where is the tie? What is the causal relationship? Food additives. Let's take a look at that, and let's take a look at how we can regulate food additives. So, you know, I had a great partner in the Congressman Tim Ryan several years ago, and that was, we partnered on a GAO study calling for a federal strategy to address the issues and food as medicine, if you will. We need to expand the food and medicine opportunities. We have a pilot program in the bill, in the appropriations bill this year, and the label, front of label packaging. There are lots of other things. But let me just tell you what I believe is the most effective program in trying to deal with food, hunger, healthy living. And that's the first pillar in the national strategy. And that is the ability for families to have economic security, to be able to afford. And for me, I'm looking at Susan knows this. We've had many conversations. For me, that translates into what the president said this morning about the child tax credit. The child tax credit. You know, I've never seen a federal program, and we've got lots of folks here who deal with federal programs, that has worked so effectively in the shortest amount of time and lifted almost half kids out of poverty, lowered the hunger rate and decline in the hunger rate of 26%. And it's expanded, it's improved, and it's monthly, and it has to be permanent. That is the goal. I'm going to conclude. I promise you, Javier, I'm going to conclude. Let me just, we can do this, my friends. We can do this. It really is. And the question is, and I'm going to say this to the administration, the strategies are laid out. Put it in the 2024 budget so that we can deal with it and move on it in the Congress. Let us then take it from there, but take it from you because you've laid it out so very, very well. You know, I am going to close with this. First of all, from here we go to where? Implementation. Implementation, and Jim has talked about this. How do we make sure that we are carrying out the directives that will come out of this conference? And that's, you know, and what is that going to be? And we will await that. And we're going to nag you until you let us know what those priorities are. But if I can, because this is in the words of constituents, and this is about the child tax credit, this is a quote. It means that we didn't have to buy cheap food, and you can get more healthier options instead of getting frozen meals or hamburger helper that's loaded with sodium and makes us gain weight. It made a difference of whether we had enough to make ends meet, that we had enough to eat or not to eat. We live in the United States of America, and as many of my colleagues have said over and over today, no one, no child, no senior, no one should go to bed hungry at night. Right. And for us who serve in government, that is, I said, a moral imperative. Let's get it done. We need you to be the external pressure on us to make sure that it gets done. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you.
wish I had a mic so I could give it so she could drop it.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So.
Who's going to take the gavel away from her?
Yeah. Right.
Just try. We're very fortunate that Mayor Adams is with us. Mayor, when you think about the work that needs to be done, and here, of course, now we speak to you because at the federal level, we've heard from some potent leaders, but we know that our state and local partners are essential in this effort. So as we think about this, that the work that needs to be done to achieve the conference goals, how are you as a leader focusing on driving solutions to some of these critical issues of hunger, nutrition, and health?
Clearly, first, we just have to take our hats off to the Biden-Harris team for understanding the moral imperative that we're facing right now. And these two partners, I am extremely optimistic of where we're going. This issue is not only a professional response for me, but it's a personal response. I woke up with vision loss. Doctor told me I was going to be blind in a year. I was going to lose some fingers and toes because of permanent nerve damage. Just to learn that I had advanced stages of diabetes. Mm-hmm. And after just learning and reading on folks like Dean Ornish, Dr. Dean Ornish, who I see is here, Dr. Esserton, Dr. Greger, and learning that it was never my DNA, it was my dinner. It was what I was eating every day. And 3 weeks after going to a whole food plant-based diet, my vision came back, my nerve damage went away, my ulcer went away, my high blood pressure went away. The entire American package went away. And it just made me realize as leaders, how do we dig into this? And I was able to meet these amazing doctors that knew that we were down the wrong path. And we really have to start with definitions, because definitions determine exactly what we're doing. We were fed as children, but we were feeding our healthcare crises. The food we were getting from the struggles of SNAP, that hard cheese, that canned bologna, that powdered eggs, all of those foods that we fought for, we realized that it was feeding the healthcare crises that we were facing. We're spending 80 cents on a dollar to treat food-related diseases. I mean, it just makes no sense. And the goal is, how do we reverse that? So we must move our mindset from caloric consumption to nutritional consumption. Going to bed with a full belly that is not nutritional is just really feeding your healthcare crisis.
Amen. Amen.
So what are we doing in New York? In New York, we're doing something for the first time in the history. We started as when I was Brooklyn Borough President. We had a lifestyle medicine with Dr. McMacken in Bellevue Hospital that gave people a choice to have plant-based meals while they're in the hospital instead of feeding the reason that they are in the hospital in the first place. We expanded it now that I became mayor. It's now in 11 of our hospitals. Dr. Vassan, who's here, who's the commissioner of my health and hospitals, commissioner of my Department of Health and Mental Hygiene. We are now telling people in hospitals that are going to heal, we're giving them options. We are defaulting to plant-based meals. If they don't want plant-based meals, they have an opportunity to get whatever meal they want, but we found over 50% of the people, when they were defaulted to our chef specials, they chose them. 95% stated we like them. But we're also going into our schools. We have, for the first time, meatless Mondays on Monday, and on Friday we have plant-powered Fridays, while children are learning these good eating habits so they can go home, particularly when English is a second language. Children go home and start informing their parents of how meals are impacting them, and we're building it into our educational curriculum so children can understand the impact of that. I signed an executive order. We're spending hundreds of millions of dollars purchasing food that we know the food is unhealthy. So now my executive orders for good food purchasing. So what is the purpose that I know I have an issue of childhood diabetes in my school? Why am I feeding my babies food that caused the childhood diabetes? Why is the Department of Health allowing the Department of Education to operate separately? Our entire food curriculum should come through the Department of Health. We should determine You know, the debate of previous administrations was, you know, well, what type of pizza you have. How about none? That's not plant-based. Or that's not healthy. And so the goal of what we're doing in New York is leading by example. Kate McKenzie, who was handling my entire operation around food, is using the science. And so the great work our lawmakers are doing is bringing the resources to our cities. We are closest to the problem. We have to think not outside the box. We have to destroy the box. We have to allow growing food in our schools so children can pick it and eat it in the classroom. We need to make sure everywhere we're feeding people with taxpayers' dollars should make sure that food is healthy. And so I just take my hat off to the Biden and Harris team that is bold enough to state 50 years were too long. It's time for us to re-examine the food that we are feeding Americans. And let me conclude with this. There's no one in this room that does not know someone that's going through a chronic disease. Mm-hmm. Chronic disease hijacks your life. You're no longer the person who you are. It is impacting how we are producing as Americans when we sit down at the terminal at work and we learn about hospice, we learn about the next test. This is so important. And when I saw my mother, who was diabetic for 15 years, on insulin for 7 years, and when mommy was able to go whole food plant-based, and after 7 years of being on insulin, in 2 months she was off her insulin. That meant so much to me because, you know, mommy has 6 children. She loves them all, but she adored me. It's time for us not only to heal our mothers and fathers, but let's heal Mother Earth. Our food is destroying our planet. It is destroying our children. It's destroying our families. It's time for us to liberate ourselves again. And I just take my hat off to the two of you. We are going to continue and expand what we're doing in the city to make sure that people can live a healthy lifestyle. And we're encouraged. And I just want to really thank this administration for just getting it right. And we say in New York, GSD, get stuff done.
Yeah.
Get stuff done.
Hear, hear.
Amen.
Well done.
Please join me in thanking Mayor Adams, Chairwoman DeLauro, and Chairwoman Stabenow for sharing their thoughts about where we're going to go and how we get there as quickly as we can at all levels of government. Thank you so much.
Are we leaving? Oh, no, we're not leaving. Oh,
no, I guess we're going to see that.
Oh, okay.
And before we leave the stage, I want to take a moment to recognize another leader who worked so closely with Congressman McGovern in making all of this possible, making a difference for Americans. She was supposed to be here, and we want to recognize Congresswoman Jackie Walorski, who is no longer with us, had a tragic accident in August. I, like Jim, had a chance to serve with her when I was still in Congress. We have to fight, and fight till the very end. And I think all of you will agree that Jackie fought till the very end for children, to eradicate hunger, and we want to thank her for that. So if you'll do us this honor of watching this tribute for Congresswoman Jackie Walorski.
I'm Congresswoman Jackie Walorski. First and foremost, I'm a lifelong Hoosier. I've dedicated my career to helping Hoosier families. Families and advocates, volunteers and experts, community leaders and elected officials have worked together to highlight the problem of hunger in this country. No one in this nation should go hungry. When I read that 1 in 6 Americans are hungry, it reaffirmed my commitment to ensure that no child or adult endures what I've seen others go through. I will continue working across the aisle to empower people and help improve lives. I want you to know that I am fighting for you.
Thank you very much.
Please welcome Chef Jose Andres, founder of World Central Kitchen.
Hi, everybody. Okay, so Mr. President, Cabinet Secretaries, members of Congress, my fellow food fighters, every one of you in this room, thank you. Yeah, you can clap, but everyone, yourselves included. You came from far away, people, to be here today. I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm a little bit nervous here. I think every one of you feels the weight of this moment. I feel the weight of this moment, but we are all together. And this way we can carry it together. So really thank you for inviting me here to speak about the most important source of energy in this country. The food we eat, and you know it. Oh yeah. So let's be honest. If we were talking about a different kind of energy, like oil and gas, it would maybe not take half a century to host a conference like this one today. It would not take an army of food activists like you and many others across America, or a Spanish-American chef to say, food is a national security priority. Yeah, you can clap on that one. But guys, thanks to the leadership of President Biden, we are now coming together for this historic moment. It also took many champions in Congress from both chambers and both parties in a bipartisan way, especially the support and the commitment of the House Hunger Caucus led by my friend Jean McGovern. Love you, we love you, and we'll always love you more. I'll always cooking for you, anytime you tell me. And the late and dearly Miss Jackie Warlowski, and many others, like Senator Cory Booker and Mike Brown. They all deserve our great thanks and gratitude. So thank you to all for prioritizing the food health of our nation. Many of you have traveled great distances to be here today. And I arrived last night from Puerto Rico, where 5 years after Hurricane Maria, the climate crisis, once again left American citizens powerless, without food, water, and where already war has began to heal people and rebuild the communities using something is very important to all of you, to all of us today, the power of food. I stand here today in the shadow of a fellow immigrant, like Jean Meyer, who chaired the 1969 conference. I was born in 1969. I came to Washington, D.C. in 1993. But in 1969 is the same year we put a human in the moon, when millions of American children were going to bed hungry. 53 years later, after all our progress in science and technology, after all we have done to produce better food in cheaper and smart ways, we are still struggling with an epidemic of diet-related disease. And children are still going to bed hungry. As we saw in the worst days of the pandemic, and I know almost every one of you was active during the pandemic, and I thank you for it, decades of economic and racial injustice, poor diets, and even unfair policies have left our communities weak and a little bit vulnerable. And hunger and food-related sickness are the invisible enemies of our lifetime. They are moral challenges to each and every one of us. You cannot see the aching feeling in people's hungry stomachs. You can't. If you never felt hunger, you really don't know what it means to be hungry. Or the loss of dignity. Yeah, you can clap on that one, because this shouldn't be happening. You can sense it, but you cannot understand it. Or the loss of dignity and productivity that comes from waiting in line for hours for a box of food that you don't even know what is inside. You cannot see the body's constant struggles with diet-related disease, or how poorly fed school children face challenges learning in the classroom when they can barely concentrate with an empty stomach. But you know, and that's why you are here, that all of you, all of us, we can do something about it. And I know that sounds simple, but I do believe that complex problems have actually very simple solutions. You know a little bit about World Central Kitchen, this nonprofit that does simple things at times at the scale. Instead of watching people go hungry, we cook. We cook 100 meals the first day. Then we double it, and we double it again. Before you know, we are serving millions of meals, maybe in a war zone like Ukraine, or as we speak, in many countries and islands in the Caribbean, including right now in Florida. You know, instead of waiting for outside help, you know what we do? We activate local people to help their own communities, because locals know best. Instead of meeting and planning, we take action. And that's, my friends, not so different from what every one of us must do to join President Biden's bold effort and announcement. Starting today, simple. We have to take action. We can change the way our food system works and the way we see it in this country starting today. With the first urgency of now, we need to diversify our food to survive the climate crisis and the next pandemic. This is a national security issue itself. Don't put all the eggs in one basket. Diversify. And we need to adapt our food to thrive in a highly competitive global economy. We need to stop giving people breadcrumbs and start building bakeries. That's a powerful metaphor and a real. And you know, food is not just a problem. Food must be, can be, and should be the solution. The solution to many of the complex problems we face. Like many of you, like all of you, I've seen the power of food to change lives. And some of the worst disasters you can imagine on this planet. Sometimes in the worst moments of humanity, the best of every human shows up. You know, I've seen how food is the fastest way to rebuild our sense of community. Not I, the person, but we, the people. We can put people back to work preparing food, as we can put life back together by fighting hunger. You don't see Republicans and yeah, I like that, yeah. I needed a break. You know, you don't see, and President Biden has spoken about that continuously. It takes all of us. You don't see Republicans and Democrats after a hurricane, people. You only see neighbors helping neighbors. You don't see rural and urban voters at a farmer's market. You see a community celebrating the bounty of the earth. You don't see immigrants and natural-born citizens working in a restaurant. You see a team working together, moving a business forward. We can unite our country right now when we need it the most. I do believe through the power of food. Because, my friends, a meal is so much more than a plate of calories. It's a plate of hope for the hopeless. It's a voice for the voiceless. That's what a plate of food is. When I first arrived in Washington as a young immigrant, looking for a place to belong, I began volunteering in one of the places you know is very close to my heart, DC Central Kitchen. Whose founder, who is here with us today, told me when I barely was 26 that charity too often seems is about the redemption of the giver when it must be about the liberation of the receiver. That goes for you, Robert. In the process of ending food waste, people were brought off. We brought off the street to learn job skills, to become a cook, to start preparing meals, to start serving in the shelters around D.C. and in schools across the city. Thousands of meals every day, non-stop for 35 years. This is Central Kitchen put at the heart of solving many problems at once, a humble plate of food. Use $1 not only to solve the problem and feed the people in need, but training people, creating jobs, buying from local farmers. And then restaurants like me hiring the people that came trained, $1 multiplied by 4 or 5 times. You know, you can be solving many problems at once if you stop throwing money at the problem and you start investing in solutions. This same holistic approach we must adopt at the federal level in order to stop treating food as sometimes what it seems is an afterthought, at the start harnessing its true potential. Almost 200 years ago, people, the great food writer, a Frenchman, and I don't mention French people in the openly, it's a lot of competition with French chefs and Spanish chefs. You know I love them, but you know what I mean. So this had to be good for me to mention Briat Severin. This man said, tell me what you eat and I'll tell you who you are. But he said a phrase that should be high up in the walls of Congress. He said, the future of the nations will depend in how they feed themselves. He was a visionary. Our future as a nation depends in how we feed ourselves today and tomorrow. That's why today, I want to be bold. I'm a creative chef. We are all creative people. So I'm really proposing maybe a radical overhaul of the way we protect our food supply and improve our food health. Just look at the miles of lines outside food banks during the worst of the pandemic, as farmers were throwing away perfectly good food and hundreds of thousands of local restaurants were shutting down. Our patchwork approach is failing us all. Just 1 year after the last White House Food Conference in 1970, the Government Accountability Office began its call for reform. 5 years ago, it said we need a national food safety strategy because oversight is spread across no less than 16 federal agencies, people. 16. Just last year, it identified 200 efforts across 21 agencies to address diet-related needs. If this was in the private sector, we will be shut down by then. it said Congress needed to add now to create a national strategy on nutrition. So my friends, thanks to President Biden, we now have a national strategy, as you know, released yesterday. President Biden, Secretary Vilsack, and I, we all agree that we need to evolve the current role of the U.S. Department of Agriculture. Imagine what kind of health impact we can have with an agency that incentivizes healthier SNAP purchases, making fruits and vegetables available and affordable for all Americans, as outlined in the new national strategy. Yeah, you can clap on that one, because we need to keep coming up. So yes, we need, I believe, a new food agency that will bring many of these things together. We must all, though, act on the President's national strategy to pursue a whole of government transformation on our food system. I do personally believe that we should go further to really create this new federal agency with the mission of ensuring the safety of our food supply, but more important, ensuring that all Americans will have access to fresh, healthy, and nourishing food in the good times and especially in the emergencies and in the very difficult times like the ones we've been going on during the last 3 years. Yeah, you can clap on that one. Because let me tell you, people, the new National Food Agency idea will center food policy on the urgent needs of our citizens. Its priority will be to advocate for the food needs of the people, not only of the companies. Yeah, that's a good one. People, it's not time to be shy. The new agency will bring together the nutritional programs of the USDA as well as the food safety focus of the FDA. And it will serve as the lead for food and water in partnership with FEMA in difficult times and the USAID in response to domestic and international crises. And the new agency, I'm dreaming, must be bold, strategic, and go further to target with precision the areas of greatest food needs in the most impactful ways. And I want very quickly to highlight 3 areas where food can help revitalize and reunite our country. First, food can drive economic growth. Yes. Creating jobs and successful business at the same time. Not just better health, which is important, and making it happen in rural and urban America. We need to create food improvement districts to increase access to healthy food through private sector incentive and rule changes for nutrition programs. In these food improvement districts, SNAP rules should be maybe changed and play with to allow spending on maybe coffee shops, cafeterias, community organizations, so people can feed themselves right in the same communities they live. So that our investments in nutrition security also become investments in the local economies, especially with minority business owners. And we should develop grant programs to open grocery stores in every one of these food improvement districts. No more food deserts in the history of America. Why not? We can make it happen. No more food swamps. And also we should invest in programs to encourage corner stores, bodegas, to offer something so revolutionary as fresh produce and vegetables. Second, our public schools at the heart of our communities in red and blue states across rural and urban areas. It's time we saw the potential beyond the battle work of educating our children. Because, my friends, you know what the schools are, right? Schools can improve the food health of our entire country. Because they are the Trojan horse in every community. They are a Trojan horse of goodness. They can educate and feed at the same time. To do that, we need to invest in our nation's school kitchens so that every school can prepare nutritious and tasty meals. or universal free breakfast and lunch for all children. Everybody seems to agree, President Biden seems to agree that we need to try to make it happen. And these upgraded school systems, my friend, you know what I learned? That can serve as community kitchens in times of disaster, placing them at the heart of our country's food health, as I said, not treating them like an afterthought. And they should be staffed with trained local food service professionals that they are really proud of their profession because we are giving them the dignity they deserve. And we should be purchasing from local farms, in the process improving the quality of school lunches, and in the process improving the entire economy across surrounding that school, including school lunches that can live up to our own nutritional guidelines. And third, in a country that is now enduring the climate crisis in every region, we rapidly need to adapt the way we respond to feeding our citizens in emergencies. And right now, people, is going to be all of the news after this conference. Not just because it's the right thing to do, the moral thing to do, be next to our citizens, but because of the economic impact of reviving the food economy in the middle of the emergency. When every other business seemed to be closed, restaurants were ready to be there to feed the people in need in the darkest hour. FEMA needs to recognize qualified NGOs for immediate activation and federal reimbursement of food and water distribution. And that should be something is not 100% of the cost for the length of the disaster. This way we don't leave one American behind, and we can start thinking in reconstruction quicker and faster. And we need to grow our national service program, people, like American Corp and Food Corp. And yes, you can clap for them because those are young men and women doing God's work across the nation and the world, representing America in every corner. And those trained women and men can help uplift communities, and I've seen them. We know they do it. Not only in the good times, but also where there are disaster or food shortages. And we should expand our federal partnerships with faith-based organizations to build on the historic work done by local churches or synagogues or mosques or every other community of faith. Our global and domestic economy and politics are increasingly being shaped by food. The war in Ukraine, my friends, is a humanitarian disaster. It's a food disaster because it's going to be hurting grain imports in countries around the world that need that food more than you imagine. One of the most divisive parts of our politics today, both in the US and in Europe, people, is immigration from the global south. These are a lot of reasons why people risk their lives on long journeys led often by criminal gangs. But we know all that food, hunger, moves people. It's no coincidence that the Northern Triangle represents a high proportion of the people that are coming to our southern border. And I know because I've been there. Why? Because it's years of crop failures and extreme weather has led to acute food insecurity and malnutrition. So let me be clear, people. There is no wall high enough to stop a mother with a hungry children on her arms. Longer tables is what this conference is, not higher walls for America and abroad. But it's necessary right now for the future of our country and our planet. And it's very popular that we keep concentrating on food and feeding people. You know that new polling data says that 89% of America, I mean, this has to be for President Biden, use music to his ears. 89% of Americans agree, or strongly agree, with this statement, that nobody should go hungry in this country. 89% of Americans, man, America is coming together on food. And on top of that, 61% say that government assistance to address hunger and nutrition should be increased. The American people already believe in the universal right to food. And a clear majority seems wants the public sector to take action. And we know this is not the job, and that's why all of you are here. It's not the job of government alone. It's far from it. We need them, and they need us, we the people. Advancing the food health of our country is the work of all sectors, from large corporations to small nonprofits, from the nation's capital to state, local, and tribal governments. This is the moment to set aside our personal interests and move forward together in everybody's interest. The 1969 conference opened with these words: "The nation cannot live with its conscience if these problems are not solved." So, my friends, I ask you all to see hunger and poor nutrition not just a problem for America to solve, but as an opportunity for America to seize. In the richest nation in the history of mankind, these are solvable problems, and we know it. But we must have the moral courage to solve them. The American people, especially the voiceless, they don't want our pity. They want our respect. Respect means that everybody in America is paid a living wage. Respect means that the people who feed America can afford to feed their own families. In this land of plenty and extraordinary wealth, there is more than enough healthy food for everyone. The truth is that food brings us together across the lines of ideology, geography, race, and culture that too often is dividing us. And this is not a choice between red and blue America, between rural and urban America, between children and seniors, between natural-born and immigrants. Let me remind you all that today is not the end of this effort. It is the beginning. It's the launching pad for your great ideas, for all the great ideas that are going to come from here today. And it's a call for action with real solutions. And it's a reminder that if we are successful today and in the months and years to come, we will not need to wait for a third White House food conference to say we put an end on hunger and nutrition insecurity once and for all, because it means you guys made it happen here, supporting the Biden administration and all of Congress. So I'm asking you here today to join the efforts and leadership of President Biden, Congress, myself, and everybody supporting everybody. People, we need to write new recipes to feed a hungry nation and build longer tables so everybody can eat from the goodness of this American farmland of ours. Thank you for having me, and let's do this.